And a very good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second webinar of 2021. We're just getting started this year, and we have a great webinar this evening on pathways, and I'll introduce our speaker very, very shortly. As we normally do, we kick off with a couple of housekeeping rules. First of all, this is being recorded and will be publicly put on YouTube, so if you don't want to be seen, then please put a mask on or a furry hat with horns on or something like that to disguise yourself. Actually, no, that last one didn't work terribly well, did it? So it is being recorded. It will go on YouTube probably tomorrow night, Tuesday morning, I would have thought, but I will send an email to everybody when it is. If you can please have your cameras on as much as possible. We do like seeing faces, and it just makes it easier for the interaction. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this, so please do ask questions. If something comes up that's pertinent during the session, then please drop it into the chat. I will keep an eye on the chat and we'll make sure that your questions are asked. This is a slightly different webinar this evening in the sense that we've pre-recorded a lot of the elements because Mary is actually going to give you a walkthrough demonstration of pathways. So rather than just a few PowerPoint slides, this is actually going through screen by screen by screen how you go through pathways. So it is a lot more technical than we would normally do on a webinar, but the feedback really has been that people need this kind of level of interaction and level of information. We will, as I say, have a Q&A session at the end, so please ask as many questions as you can and we will get them answered. Hope everybody is clear with that. So let me introduce our speaker this evening. 15 years in Toastmasters, currently president of Whitney Speakers in Oxfordshire. She's got her DTM and has been a pathways guide, which is why she's absolutely perfect for doing this particular webinar this evening. And also, having spent many years working in a VP role, Mary really understands how Toastmasters meetings are put together and the requirements that you need in order to get your education awards. So let me introduce Mary Robson, and Mary, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Andy, for that very nice introduction. And thank you, Andy and Helena, for asking me to present the webinar this evening. Now, Pathways and its value as our education programme is very close to my heart. I've been involved with Pathways almost since its beginnings. As Andy said, I was a Pathways guide before and during rollout, and as a Vice President of Education and a Base Camp Manager, I've been involved in introducing the programme to both newer and older members. And in doing so, I have learnt a lot, often the hard way. There is no doubt that the programme and Basecamp, the learning platform where it lives, can be difficult to negotiate and a bit tricky to get your head round until you get used to it. But once you have taken a bit of time and patience to get to grips with it, there is such a wealth of valuable learning material and diverse projects that you can use to tailor your path, create flexibility, and with the many choices available that really make it work for you. And I do think that it is a brilliant program. So what we'll cover today is I'm just going to put up an agenda for you. Just bear with me with a couple of technicalities. There we go. That is what I am planning to cover today. So points 2 to 5 are on a pre-recorded video, and this is because when you're going through the various pages and tabs in Pathways, it can be a bit slow. So we've been able to speed it up and cut out the bits rather than have you twiddling your thumbs. As Andy said, put the questions on the chat and Andy will manage that at the end for us. But I do want to say, though, that I am no expert on this, particularly with IT. There may well be questions that I can't answer, and some of you may have more answers than I do. But we are going to begin with a quiz. This is just a bit of fun. And we've set up some questions in the polls. And this is so that I can see really where you are now and to highlight some particularly relevant points. So with that, over to you, Andy, to and Andy will share the results once as many people as possible have voted. So I think that one is good to share.
Yep.
Andy?
So 67% of people said 11 paths.
And 67% of people were correct. So well done to the majority. There were 10 originally, then they added the 11th about 18 months ago, I think. Okay, next one. Can you work in more than one path at a time?
So everybody's got that, yes.
Absolutely right. Good, well done everybody. And the next one.
Yep, on the screen now. Okay, 78% said 5 levels. One person, 2 people thought there were 8, and 2 people thought there were 3.
Okay, so the 5s have it. There are indeed 5 different levels in each path, building from the fundamentals up to the more complex and challenging projects at level 5. Well done. And the next.
People having enough fingers and toes for this.
It's going to be slightly more challenging as we progress. Oh, I love this.
Couple more still to vote.
Okay. Right. So are you sharing that result now, Andy?
Yep.
I'm going to tell you that not one single person has got the right answer there because it is 59. And how many said 63?
7 of them.
7 of them. You were nearly right. This is a slightly tricky question. I said within all 11 paths because of those 63, 3 of them are in the mentoring side path. And one of them is the DTM project that happens when you've completed 2 of your paths. So the correct answer there is 59. Okay. And the next one.
Number 5. All people are thinking about this.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes.
All right. The minimum number of projects to complete a whole path, 4 of you are right, is 14. And they are spread over the whole of the 5 levels. So well done to those 4. Shall we go on with the other to complete all 10 at this stage, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Number 6. Of course, if you'd done this one earlier, they'd have known it was 59 paths, wouldn't they? 59 projects, rather. Very tight. 6 more people, 5 more people. Okay, wow.
Done?
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Right, okay, well, the 2 who said 36 to 38 are correct. And this is because although you only have to complete 14 projects, all the rest are available to you as electives. So if you want to be really masochistic, you could spend your whole time doing 38 projects in one path. But that gives you the flexibility because you can choose from those electives which you want to do. Great, well done. Okay, and number 7. Okay, you have closed that one, I think, Andy.
So my computer decided to freeze there. There we go.
Okay, right. So the majority have got the right answer there, which is that you do not have to complete a level before you can work on projects in other levels. It used to be the case that you had to finish a level before you could move on. There was such a furore about that TMI opened up all the levels so that you can work on any project that fits your needs. Great stuff. Okay, and number 8. We're nearly there. Right, it's getting slightly more challenging now. Multiple choice.
Ooh.
So 3 meeting roles to carry out before your level 3 is approved. Now, I've never tried a multiple choice question before in polls, so I hope that it'll all looks pretty even. But we are, as a group, we are just about coming up with the right answer.
Yeah.
Because the 3 that have to be completed are Table Topics Master, Speech Evaluator, and Toastmaster. And this is a closely guarded secret, I think, because not everybody is aware that for each path that you do, you must have ticked that role box for each path. It's not difficult. Okay, great. And on to the last 2 now, but slightly more challenging. So which projects do not require a speech or a report?
I'll try that one again. Only 6 people voted on that before it closed.
Only 6?
Let's try that one again. Okay. Don't
All right.
quite know what happened there, but
Okay. This is a slightly tricky question. The most important answer is active listening, because for this one, you have to take the table topics master role. Slightly tricky question, because preparing to mentor, which is in the path, the mentoring side path, is also one where you've just got online learning and you don't have to get up in front of anybody and talk about it. But with the other two, managing time and making connections through networking, you are required to give a presentation in the club. But active listening is a project in every path, so it is easy to tick that project off in your path, but you need to let your VPE know that that's what you're doing. Okay, last one, I think, Andy.
Yep, there you go.
Multiple choice again. Okay, done. Good. And most of you are absolutely correct. It's the president, the VPE, and the secretary on your club committee. You don't actually have a choice in this. It's the person who is designated in that role with Toastmasters International is automatically a base camp manager. Usually it's going to be the VPE who does all the donkey work, but the idea is that two other people also have access to it, so can perform the duties if need be. Great, well done everybody. It was really, really helpful. I hope that the questions gave you some food for thought as we go through the presentation as well. But if you've got any questions that are pertinent to those questions, do please put them in the chat and we can cover them in more detail at the end. So that's great. So now we can go to the meat of the session, and I will ask Andy to launch the video, and here we go. In this section, what we are going to talk about is logging on to the TM. Andy, I can't hear any sound.
Yeah, hang on a sec.
You can use either your member ID or your email address as your username, and your password that you will have been sent when you first logged on. If you've forgotten your password, or if you haven't got one, then it's very simple. Use the forgotten password link down here and it will send you a new one very quickly. So once you have logged in,
Can you hear that now? Yeah.
then the next place to go is your profile, which you will find here up at the top where it says welcome and your name. And that then takes you to your profile, where you can go to choose a new path. Now you'll see here that it says $20 US. If you're choosing either your first path or the free path that all of us who paid our dues for October were given, then it won't charge you for it when you get to that point. So if we go to choose a path, and then you have, first of all, choose your language. I'm going to assume for the moment that it is going to be English. And the next thing is, how would you like to access your materials? Now, I'm going to recommend that, unless there's a very, very good reason not to, that you choose the digital resources here. Although you can have your path as printed materials, which are manuals that are sent to you from the States. I would recommend that you don't do that because, first of all, the number of paths that are available in printed materials is very much reduced, as is the number of electives that you can choose from. In fact, I don't think you can choose at all. I think they are dictated by that. So I think only about 0.05% of people are using printed materials. If you want to have your digital material printed, then you can print from the project. So there's really no reason not to choose this. So we'll select digital resources, and then you get the option of how you want to select your path. First of all, you can have a look at all the path options so that you can get an idea of what's in them before you make a choice. So view path options and continue. Now this will then show up any paths that are still available for you to choose. As we now know, there are 11 paths. Only 7 show here because I've actually already got 4. But for you, then anything that you haven't already chosen will show up and you can have a look. So you can learn more. Let's go to the dynamic leadership path. I'm just going to have a look at one just to illustrate what you can see here. So you'll get a very, very brief outline of the objectives of the whole path. And then you will get view all projects in this path. And this will show you, you can see here, the 5 levels. Each path has 5 levels, starting off with the basics and going up with increasing complexity and not difficulty, but let's say more challenging as you get towards level 5. Now what you'll see here is that these projects, as they're listed here in italics, are the ones that are required for each path. And then once you get up to level 3, 4 and 5, you also have the elective projects. We'll have a look at that in a minute. But what you'll see here is that level 1, you've got the Icebreaker, the evaluation and feedback project, and the researching and presenting. Now that is exactly the same in every single path. They're the basics, so everybody does those. It doesn't make any difference which path you've chosen. You've got the basics to do first. Same with level 2. There's slightly more difference with these, but you will get Introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. You will get one or both of understanding your leadership style and understanding your communication style. If you haven't got both of them, you will have another project which is relevant to your path as a required project here. Once you get to level 3, you will have one required project, and that will be specific to your path and is almost certainly not in any other path. But in your electives, if we click on this, you will see a list of the possible electives that you can do to complete your level 3. Now you only need to do 2 of these, but you can do as many of them as you like. So if anything there is particularly pertinent to the goals that you're working towards, you can do as many as you like. Now another important thing to know is that these electives, again, are the same for every path. So you don't need to spend time looking at what's in the elective list. They're the same for each path. And the same goes for the elective projects in level 4 and 5. If anything isn't in the elective list there, it's because it's a required project at that level for this particular path. So really, you don't need to agonize at this stage over which path to choose, because not only is level 1 exactly the same in each path, and level 2 is very similar. The other thing to know is that once you've chosen a path, you get to have a look at all the projects in that path, the total number. If you decide after looking at those that that path is not for you, then you can change it. within either 30 days or 90 days and pick something that is more to your liking. You can only do that once though, so it's not ongoingly interchangeable. But those things both all help so that you don't need to agonize over making your choice at this point. Another thing that you can do, I'm going to go back now to the choosing a path, is that you also get the option, we've got to choose digital again, to take an online assessment. Now, I'm not just going to show you this, I'm not going to go right through it because it's fairly straightforward. If you choose to, you can go through a questionnaire which will ask you to identify your goals and objectives in choosing a path at all. And after that, it will then suggest to you the 3 best paths that the algorithm thinks matches what you've said in your assessment. Now, it's entirely up to you if you choose to go along with that suggestion. You don't have to. You can still choose any one of the 11 paths to start with. And that is really all you need to know for this part of the presentation. So we'll now get out of this particular page and now we are going to go to Basecamp. So we've now gone back to the profile page, which, if you remember, we accessed by going to the welcome at the top there. And here you have go to Basecamp. Click on go. And this will then take you to the opening page for you for Basecamp. Where we're going to go first, because we're going to have a look at working through a module and some of the tricks, the pitfalls, and the things that you need to know and things to do. So path and learning transcript to begin with. And what you'll see here is a list of, first of all, the paths that you have got. As you see, I've got 4 going on here, as well as the Pathways Mentor program. And I'm going to go to the engaging humour because this is somewhere where I've got a project to complete, and I'll be able to show you that shortly. So the way to open it is over here on the right hand side, open curriculum. You don't click on the link there, that will take you somewhere that isn't useful. So arrow down, open curriculum. And this is where you will be able, first of all, once you've got a path, is to have a look at the detail of the projects that you've got in your path. So here we are on level 1. And you've got your icebreaker, your evaluation and feedback, and researching and presenting. If we click on level 2, then you can see that we've got know your sense of humour. Now that one is specific to level 2 in engaging humour. It is an elective in level 3 in all the others. So if you fancy that one, you can still do it. We've got connect with your audience, and we've got introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. Now, when you get to level 3, you can see that you've got 1 required project, which is showing here, and all your elective projects are there. And for each one of these, you'll be able to open the digital module and have a look through it. And there's loads and loads of choice, and this is what makes Pathways really so I find engaging because there is just so much to choose from. Whatever you're wanting at any particular time, you've got something there that's going to help you with that. Now, level 4 and 5 works in the same way, so I'm not going to go through that now. I'm going to go back to level 1, and I'm going to launch the Icebreaker. So it's arrow down and launch. Now, I've obviously opened this before because it's taken me to the last page. So let's go back to the beginning. If you ever find yourself in this situation, you can arrow down to move to another section, and we're going to go back to navigation. Now, this is what you would see if when you open a project for the first time. And this is just a page, just take some time to have a look at this, because it gives you the various instructions that you will get in the different pages as you work through your project. So the side arrow is probably the most important. That will move you through the different pages, or back if you go to the left-hand one. But there's some screen navigation that you need to keep your eye on, because it's easy sometimes to miss. If you're just scrolling through on the arrows, you can miss a sort of a cul-de-sac and not realize that you haven't taken in what's in that particular part of the project. There's also some more different information sometimes on this tab down here, directions, and there's a few other things that we'll explore as we go through. So the next page will take you to the introduction to your Icebreaker. Now, I'm sure most of you will know already that your Icebreaker speech is the first one that you will give to your club if you're a new member, but it's also the first speech at the beginning of every path. You don't get to escape it, but you can make your Icebreaker whatever you like. You can talk about something completely different. You can talk about why you've chosen this path. It's entirely up to you. And then as we go through, say more information about the project. Now, here you've got instruction that you can download and print, if you wish, a PDF version of your project. Be warned, though, that each one of these is about 16 pages. So you might want to save your ink as much as you can. Then if we close that down, you can see you've also got a link to a project checklist. Now, this is entirely optional if you use these resources within a project. It's just a piece of paper with sort of a way to work through your project. And then we'll go to the arrow. Now, this is one of the important parts of working through a project. Assess your skills before. You've got directions or instructions, if you like, on how to do it. And assessing your skills before you start the project and before you give the speech. Again, close the direction tab. And now you answer these questions. I am confident and calm when speaking in front of groups. 4, yes. Next. I understand the structure of a basic speech. Yeah, I think so. Should do by now. Next. I am aware of my strengths as a communicator and a leader. Okay, maybe. Next. I'm aware of where I need to improve my communication, listening, thinking and speaking, and leadership skills. Oh yes. And next. I have clear communication and leadership goals. Maybe. Next. I recognize how this project applies to my life outside of Toastmasters. Yes. Now, doing this questionnaire and another one at the end, once you've given your speech, is one of the most important things with these projects, because this is how Basecamp knows that you have completed this project. So here you submit. Now, once you have submitted this, you can't go back and change it. So successfully submitted. Once you've completed the project, repeat the assessment tool to measure your skill level. Close that. And then we can arrow forward. This is now more about the icebreaker, how you create it. We've got a video coming up, which we won't play because I'm sure you can sort that out for yourselves. And that's starting now. I'm going to go past that because it's about a 4-minute video, I think, but well worth watching and taking it in. Then we're talking about the goals. We've got resources here, outline worksheet, view it, download it. A word here of if you do download anything, depending on which browser you're in, I'll try downloading it. I am in, what am I in at the moment? Chrome, and it does download it directly. If you are in Firefox, you just get a blank page, but what you've got is a little arrow somewhere over here which invites you to download it, but it doesn't do it unless you do. I think that you will find that if you try and fill this before you've downloaded it onto your device, that it won't save it. So if you're going to use these resources, download them and save them to your own device. So we can go back there now. Going through again, organize your speech, you and your goals, prepare it. Now, a bit about rehearsing. Now here you've got some more information, and for this you need to go to the next button here. If you go to the direction arrow, you will miss the information that's in here. So again, we'll just flip through this. And then once you get to the end of that, then you can do that. Again, prepare and present information about delivering your speech. And on we go. Tips about how to actually enjoy giving your icebreaker. It is possible. And then now this is talking about the evaluation and your feedback. So again, we've got next, 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 and on. And then evaluating yourself. Review and apply. Complete your assignment. Okay, so this is the point where it talks to you about preparing your speech. More, more, more. Prepare for your evaluation. This is a repeat of the project checklist. More about the evaluation. Here you've got a link to your evaluation resource. Now this is something that's really important, and I'm going to do a section on evaluating and the resources and the way it works in Pathways towards the end of this webinar. So this is where you can download your evaluation resource. You can print the whole of this project if you wish to. And again, you've got a speech outline worksheet if you want to use it. And this is where you get your assess your skills after. So it's the same structure as the original questionnaire. I'm not going to answer these questions because I haven't actually done this icebreaker yet. But what I would do is exactly the same thing, give it a score and move forward to the next, giving it a score. I'm not going to do it because once you have done this, you can't change it. And then if I had done them all, I would get a submit button there, I think. Now it is clicking that submit button that tells Basecamp, not anybody else, Basecamp, that you have completed that project. Now, something that people were doing in the early stages of this, before we really appreciated how it worked, was that they would do the questionnaire, click through all the material in the online project on the module here, do the questionnaire again, click submit, and that would then show up in Basecamp that they had completed that project. But of course they haven't, because they hadn't given the speech. And occasionally it's happened that new members have clicked through all the projects in level 1 in the same way, and it had shown up that they had actually completed a level. This was inadvertent and not appreciating how the program worked. So that is how you work through a module. They all follow the same kind of pattern, but you really do need to spend time going through, looking at all the material, seeing how it works, so that you and your Basecamp manager are on the same page and it reflects exactly where you are and how you're progressing. So if I go back now to the path, so if I had completed that second assessment, I would then show there as a tick, and I can show you what that looks like. If I go back to another one of my paths where I've actually done a little bit more work, let's have a look at this one. So this is my motivational strategies. And you can see here I've got a tick against level 1, 2 and 3. Back to my level 1, and the project has got a tick against it there. What I want to show you now is how to complete a level. So I'm going to go back to this Icebreaker project that I haven't actually done yet, so don't tell anybody. I promise I'll do it soon. And I'm going to complete the assess your skills after. So let's go through this quickly. Confident and calm. Understand the structure of a basic speech. Aware of my strengths as a communicator and a leader. Aware of where I need to improve my communication. Oh yes. Clear communication and leadership goals. Yes. And I recognize how it applies to my life outside Toastmasters. So now I get the submit button. Then you get the feedback from both of the questionnaires, and I think you need to arrow down on that to see all of it. You can go back and see any of this anytime you like. and then congratulations, I have completed the project. I'm now going to close that, because what should then happen is that the icebreaker will come up with a tick. So according to Basecamp, I have now completed all the projects for level 1 from Engaging Humour. So what we now have to do is one last task, and that is the level 1 completion. So for this, we need to arrow down here, activate, and launch. And that gives you instructions on how to do it directly from that tab. Now what that will do, it now says status in progress. That has sent a message to your Basecamp manager to say that you have registered a level completion and asking for them to approve that level. Once they do that, then you will get a tick here as well, and you'll get a blue fill-in on the level 1 there to say that you have finished your level 1. Now, unless you do that, your Basecamp manager won't necessarily know that you have completed your level. So it really is a very important task to do that with each level that you complete. Now, my recommendation is that as well as completing this process here, that you also let your VPE, because your Basecamp manager will be your VPE, let them know that you have completed it and it's awaiting their approval. And I recommend that you do this because sometimes the method of communication from Basecamp to the Basecamp manager sometimes falls through the cracks. So if you let them know that it's there, then they can get on to their section of Basecamp and tick the box so that you get that approved. The other thing that you'll be able to do once your Basecamp manager has approved the level, you'll see that there is then completed and a tick, is that you could view your certificate, and from there you can print it. That comes up in a separate window, so you may not be seeing that at the moment. It comes up in a pop-up, and you can print it, or your VPE can print it so that you can have it presented at a meeting. So what I'd like to talk about now is something about evaluations within Pathways. So if we go back to home, this is back to the opening page where you accessed your learning and your education. The next tab down is speech evaluations. And this is somewhere where, in addition to from within your project, you and everybody can access all of the evaluation resources for every one of the 63 projects that are in Basecamp. Click on the link here. Which one should we try? Let's make connections through networking. And it will take you to screens. You sometimes have to work your way through this, because if you've already accessed something, there we go. So there's the evaluation resource for make connections through networking. It gives you a very brief outline of the purpose of the project and of the speech, notes for the evaluator, and some fields that you can fill in. Excelled, may want to work on to challenge yourself. And then the score sheets, where you give a numerical score to each aspect of the presentation. Generally, they're all the same, but then you'll get something specific at the end, which relates to that particular project. Now, there's a couple of things to say about this. Firstly, these scores are not intended to be shared during the verbal evaluation that you will give. This is part of your written evaluation and goes to the speaker. So I guess the bones of your verbal evaluation is what you will put into these three fields. Now with these forms and a lot of the other forms in Basecamp, if you try and complete them from here, you may be able to put some text in the boxes, but when you come to try and save it, it will not save what you have entered there. So you must download and then you can save it onto your computer. I've got a file with of evaluations and everything goes in there. So it is the speaker's responsibility to make sure that the evaluator has got this form. This is a lot more onerous now that we're meeting online rather than face-to-face in a meeting. But it's relatively straightforward enough to send it through by email to your evaluator, and good practice to communicate with them in advance anyway. It is then the evaluator's responsibility to complete the form and to send it back to the speaker. You can either fill in the fields and send it back electronically, or you can print it out and fill it in by hand and then either scan it back, photograph it, whatever, or even put it in the post. Now, I'd also like to bring to your attention a tutorial video that is available within the tutorials and resources in Basecamp. There's a link to it here, the How to Evaluate tutorial, and this is something which is really, really good and helpful. It's about a half-hour tutorial and it goes in a lot of depth in how to evaluate, how to do it well, what to do, what not to do, and it is very, very well worth reviewing that. The other resource is the Level 1 project, Evaluation and Feedback. And this is something that I really want to flag up because it is a project that is often misunderstood and not gone through in enough detail. It's a Level 1 project, and the idea of it is that it has got 3 separate tasks within the one project. Firstly, you give a speech, any topic at all that you like. You will get normal evaluation and feedback from it, hopefully from your evaluator and also from people in the meeting, which seems to be working very well doing that in the chat at the moment. You then give another speech. It can be the same one again, or you can give a different speech. But the idea is to incorporate the specific feedback that you had in the first evaluation. The third task in this project is to give an evaluation yourself of another speaker's speech. And it's these 3 tasks that comprise this project. And that's why there are 4 speeches in Level 1, not just 3. But in this project itself, again, it looks as though I've finished that one. So in this project, there is quite a large section on how to be an effective evaluator, including videos and the opportunity to do a brief evaluation yourself, just as part of the learning in the module. So I thoroughly recommend that you have a look at that. So I think that brings us to the end of the recording. So thank you all very much for your attention and your patience. I hope that wasn't too either boring or complicated or basic. But I think that now I would like to, any comments, questions, anything at all that you want to say. If there's been any questions in the chat, then Andy can field them to us. But really, it's now open to the floor. So what would you, is there anything that anybody would like to ask? Elizabeth.
Mary, I hope I didn't miss it, but did you mention the mentoring program? I know it's not a path, but it's really one of the most useful things, I believe, in the sort of the whole pathway setup.
Yes.
Did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it is really, really useful and should be promoted more. I haven't mentioned it specifically today because we were covering the basics. And the mentoring side path is something that becomes available to everybody once they have completed a level 2 in any path. Because the first part of that project is the introduction to mentoring speech that you give in level 2. But as soon as you've submitted that in Basecamp, then it becomes available, and there are 3 projects in that. That's got some absolutely wonderful material in there to help you as a mentor through first of all a simple mentoring project with one of your members for one of their projects, and then it's a longer 6-month mentoring commitment with one of your members, and I'm finding it really, really inspiring working on that. So I can recommend it for anybody. Once they've got to level 2, have a look at what's available to you. So thanks for mentioning that, Elizabeth. That was, I agree with you.
So
anything?
Jennifer on the chat, is there any training to improve skills in giving an evaluation?
I think really I covered everything that I'm aware that's available in Basecamp in the recording there. Apart from that, it is watching your fellow members and practicing and taking part in contests. So the more you do it, the better you get. But to review the material that is available in Basecamp, the videos and that project.
Yeah, I think from my personal point of view, it's evaluating is very much a learnt skill. You don't just normally come into Toastmasters being able to evaluate somebody. So it takes time, it takes practice. The more speech you evaluate, the better you're going to become.
I'm completely with you on
that.
Mary,
yeah.
Housekeeper. I've done my icebreaker speech. After, how do you know if you've completed the evaluation properly? Do you get a feedback to say it's completed? I know you mentioned that there appears a tick when you complete each level, but I'm not sure. I remember doing the evaluating the strength, but I don't know for sure whether I've done it right. I heard you said you can only do it once, and I may have, you said you do it at the beginning and after the speech. Well, I can't remember doing it before the speech, but I think I did it after the speech. So I'm not sure. Do you get a confirmation to say you've completed that icebreaker speech?
So are we talking about your Icebreaker project and your Icebreaker speech?
Yes. How do you know? Do you get a confirmation that it's complete? I know I didn't receive my certificate as yet, but go on.
The way that you know that Basecamp knows you've done it is where you've got that little tick beside that project in your path.
Okay.
Now, the certificate doesn't happen automatically. It becomes available once you've completed the level. You get a certificate for a level, not for a project.
Okay. Okay, I see.
So once you've completed all the projects in the level and completed the level completion task, then the certificate becomes available. And if you've got a great VPE, they will notice that and they will print it and present it to you, but you may have to do it yourself.
Okay, so now that I've done my icebreaker, my actual next part of the course, what's my next project now after my icebreaker?
The other two projects in
Level
level 1 are, first of all, the evaluation and feedback project. And this is the one that I mentioned where you've got 3 tasks in it.
Yeah.
First of all, a speech, any speech at all you choose. You get an evaluation. You do that same speech or a different one, but specifically incorporating the feedback that you've had.
Yeah.
Then the third task is to give a speech evaluation yourself for another club member.
Okay, thank you.
So the other project in level 1 is the research and present project, which is really, really interesting to do. And you can do all those tasks and speeches in any order. So if you want to do your first evaluation and feedback, then your research and present, then your second evaluation and feedback, you can do it that way. It's not prescriptive, the order that you do them, but I would recommend, although you can go to higher levels as well, that if you're a new speaker, a new member of Toastmasters, I would thoroughly recommend completing level 1 before you go on to anything else, because it does build your skills in a constructive way.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much.
So in kind of relation to that, Massimo's asked, in the evaluation project, when delivering the third part, which is evaluating another speaker, is there an evaluation of the evaluator by a more experienced club member to the audience?
Indeed there is, Andy, and this is where it all gets a bit complicated. I think Toastmasters say that you should have a verbal evaluation of your evaluation. There is an evaluation resource as well, so you get a written evaluation for it. What I tend to do is to ask our general evaluator, who is evaluating the evaluators anyway, to pay particular attention to anybody who's doing that task from their evaluation and feedback project, and to complete the written evaluation form as well.
Okay. Janet said, is there a simple one-pager that shows how all the projects and levels fit together? Janet, if you go to the Toastmasters website, and in the top right-hand corner, there is a little box which says search. If you type in the numbers 8077, that will then give you a PDF of all of the paths, all of how it breaks down.
That's very interesting, Andy. I wasn't aware of that. What I have here, and I can send it, is a one-page document that has got everything in a chart, and this is my go-to reference for this, so I can send that to Janet and to anybody else who would
Please,
like
Mary.
it. Yes.
Is it available to print off on the site?
No.
Or you have to send it?
No,
Oh, please send it to me as well, Mary, please. Thank you.
Okay. If anybody would like that sent, please could you put your email addresses in the chat, and I'll save those and I'll send them. And that was Kiefer?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Going back to what Kiefer said, Mary, that you will get an email from Toastmasters once you complete a level as well.
Yes.
On top of that certificate, they always send you congratulations, you have achieved a level.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
You're absolutely
thank you.
right.
I think final question again comes from Shakiba, who asks, can you give an example of a research and present project, please? So this is our fourth project in level 1.
Okay, shall I tell you? I think I've done that twice. The first time I did it, it was about St Kilda, which is an island out in the Atlantic to the northwest of the Outer Hebrides.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one I did was about sleep.
Fantastic.
So it's anything at all that interests you. It's meant to be something that either you don't know much about or you want to learn more about yourself, so that you're researching something new to you.
Yep. And obviously, the more facts and figures you can put into this, the better, and makes it appear more research. So this is really loads of facts and figures, and so it shows kind of breadth of your research. So thank you very much. If you want that presentation, then put it in the chat.
Yes. Andy, can I just interrupt just once, if I may?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Andy Newman, you had your hand up, and I don't think we had your question. So I don't want to leave you without.
Thank you, Mary. You speak beautifully in a deliberate way, by the way. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
I just want to share some of my frustrations that I've found with Pathways, which is an excellent resource. And it just might be me on the one side. Sometimes I have videos that I'm watching that seem to stop, and I've got to watch them all over again. Some I don't mind because they're great, and some are not so great. But more importantly, I and some of the others have found difficulty in uploading evaluations to other people's speeches to the system. I've been on for a while, but could you possibly just go over that?
Yes, don't do it, is my straightforward answer to that. I think although we were led to believe that the thing to do was to upload evaluations to Basecamp, in fact, that's really not the case. And I mean, this is a whole new discussion. So I don't know anybody in my clubs that is actually uploading evaluations. We just fill in the evaluation resource and we send them by email or in person to the speaker. And then it's up to the speaker what they do with them. They can save them on their a file on their computer. They can keep them in a paper file. So I don't even try, but I can have a separate conversation with you about that, because there's a lot to say about it, if you would like.
Thank you. It's just I was under the impression, yeah, I would like, please. I'll just put my email in the chat. Because I was just under the impression when you complete all 5 pathways that there's an interrogation process on what you've done.
No.
Good.
No. So if your email is in there, then I'll be in touch with you and we'll have a chat.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Although it can be arranged. We can set up an interrogation suite just for you, Andy, there.
You're beginning to worry me, Andy.
Yeah, stay away from that. Great. Okay, sorry to interrupt your...
No problem at all. I'm just conscious it's 8:10. I think we've had a fantastic session this evening. So can we have a round of applause, please? Take yourselves off mute. Quick round of applause, please, for Mary. Because I think that was a job there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Thank you all very, very much. What I will do, if you want to just hang on, I'll put up my email address and also the email address that you would need to use to get in touch with Toastmasters if you wanted to swap your path. I meant to do that earlier. Sorry about that.
So just before we go, just to let you know, next Sunday at 7 p.m, we have got Florian Bay, and he is going to be joined by an exclusive panel of people talking about why they chose district leadership. And 2 weeks today is Neil Coleman returning to talk about contest rules. So if you missed the first session and you're doing anything to do with the contest as a speaker, as a judge, as a contest chair, then please join us for that. Details are on the District 91 website, along with all of the forthcoming webinars. We are currently booked up until the end of March now. So if you want to get in before the convention and just do a webinar, then you've only got a couple of slots left. So if you want to get in touch, it's webinar@d91toastmasters.org.uk. Hopefully you've all taken down Mary's contact details there. We'll save the chat so that we can send.
Sorry, Andy, I missed it. It went too quickly.
Sorry?
It came off the screen too quickly, and I didn't get a chance to write it down.
Mary's email address.
Yeah.
Let me just bring Mary back on. There you go.
I've just put it in the chat as
Yeah.
well.
mrobson251 at
I
AOL.
was MROBSON 251 at AOL.com. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So all that leads me to do is just to thank Mary for tonight. Thank everybody for turning up. Have a great week. Please stay warm. Please stay safe. And we look forward to having you back here next Sunday evening. So from Mary and myself, thank you very much and good night.